pleasure to introduce today's session, Context is Everything, Why Your Firm's Proprietary Data Gets More Powerful Over Time session. My name's John Manganell, Head of Business Development at RFA. For those of you who may be unfamiliar with RFA, we are a DealCloud partner, and since 1989, we have redefined the future of technological support. Through our R&D, managed application services, and DevOps, automation and machine learning capabilities, we provide our clients with customized workflow and IT strategies to support their digital transformation. RFA's role is to serve as a partner for DealCloud to integrate the platform more deeply into a manager's infrastructure. Together, RFA and DealCloud support thousands of global investing and banking powerhouses. Cumulatively, we offer a tremendous volume of industry-specific technological and change management expertise. By putting that expertise together through this partnership, we provide best-in-class services and technology transformation for organizations like yours. We are excited to dive into today's session, Context is Everything, Why Your Firm's Proprietary Data Grows More Powerful Over Time. Today's data has become the new oil. Managing relationships requires tracking vast amount of information. Deals move fast and the competition is fierce. You cannot afford to look like you do not know what you're doing. If everyone at the firm leverages the same centralized platform for daily deal and relationship management, your firm's building mountains of intellectual capital. How can firms harness their proprietary data? I'd like to introduce you to Isaiah Knouff of Canaccord Genuity Global Capital Markets, Virginia Haythorne Kocher of AllianceBernstein, and Paul Stocker of Providence Equity Partners. They'll dive deep into this topic today. Enjoy the session.
Hi, and welcome to DealCloud Connect 20. My name is Kathy Millian. I'm with DealCloud and have the pleasure of moderating our session today. This is a unique time that we are in, and on behalf of everyone at Intapp, we appreciate you attending this 3-day virtual Connect event. I am confident we will still be delivering valuable content as we have a phenomenal lineup of speakers. Hopefully, you've had the opportunity to hear from some of them already. Today's session is about the power of your firm's proprietary data and enriching the data experience for your firm. Access to the data is one thing, but leveraging the data to create a 360-degree picture of deal and investment life cycles is what makes the data so powerful. You layer in that third-party data into one platform and boom, you have unleashed real power. Today, we look forward to hearing from 3 panelists who will be sharing information about their data ecosystems, where they are in developing those ecosystems, the impact that the data has across their value chain, how they layer in third-party data with their proprietary data, and finally, we'll touch on the use of data analytics in their firms. So without further ado, let's start by having our speakers introduce themselves. We'll just go left to right for ease. Virginia, would you mind kicking us off?
Sure. Thank you, Kathy. I'm Virginia Kocher, Chief of Staff at AB Private Credit Investors. We're an investment advisor in the Alternatives Investment Group at AllianceBernstein. We manage fund accounts for high net worth and institutional clients. Our core investment strategy is U.S. middle market private credit. We have a direct lending platform with capital available for investment of approximately $10 billion. I joined the firm about 4.5 years ago and work on a variety of initiatives, one of them being managing our DealCloud relationship.
Perfect. Thank you, Virginia. Isaiah?
Hello there. I'm Isaiah Knouff. I'm with Canaccord Genuity. I co-head the U.S. Financial Sponsors Group for Canaccord and have been with the firm for 4.5 years.
Thank you, Isaiah. And finally, Paul.
Thank you, Kathy. Paul Stocker, Chief Technology Officer at Providence Equity. I've been with the firm close to 15 years now. And in addition to that, part of my responsibilities, better put it that way, I manage all technology at the firm, including the DealCloud relationship.
Thank you. So thanks to all of you for taking the time to be with us today and sharing your experience. We have certainly set the stage for some great discussion. So McKinsey has put out some interesting information about data and analytics. However, we should never think about data as replacing humans, but rather an enablement for making better, quicker, and consistent decisions. I ask all of our panelists to describe their firm's current data ecosystem and where they see that changing and evolving over the next 12 to 18 months. Isaiah, can I ask you to start us off?
Sure, happy to. So we implemented DealCloud a little over a year ago. What we found is that we needed a central warehouse, if you will, to collect our proprietary information and disseminate that across the firm in order for us to be more coordinated internally.
Excellent. And tell us about your kind of your data ecosystem, how you've been creating that and developing that.
Yeah, so prior to DealCloud, we had two different CRMs that were somewhat dated. It was challenging to extrapolate that information. So what we've been doing is continuing to build out various inputs, I would say, within DealCloud to collect certain proprietary information, and then subsequently create reports so it's easily accessible, if you will, on a go-forward basis. That's one of the challenges, I think, overall, is it's easy to collect the information. Then how do you go about extrapolating that information to make everyone more efficient with their time?
Got it. And so it sounds like you're taking more of a phased approach to your data management, maybe even layering in some of the third-party data. So appreciate that perspective. Virginia, do you look at your ecosystem any differently, or is it about the same?
It sounds similar to what Isaiah described. We implemented DealCloud just over a year ago. We were previously using Salesforce as our CRM and pipeline database. We currently use DealCloud to track all of our client interactions. We record deal data for purposes of analytics, and we also manage our investment process from origination all the way through to the point of execution for each deal in DealCloud, as we've implemented some workflows in there that have proved quite useful. We just from like a full ecosystem perspective, we monitor our borrowers' financial performance using Everest, which was formerly known as Black Mountain. And we track asset balances and portfolio activity using Sentry. It's a software of clear structure. We've yet to integrate DealCloud to feed any of those systems, and are considering other options for how we get data out of the three systems in order to determine kind of what is the final view for that data and how we could best use a tool to analyze that data from a reporting perspective.
We
haven't yet integrated any third-party data provider into DealCloud yet fully.
Okay, thank you. And Paul, I believe that you mentioned y'all use DealCloud a little bit differently. Tell us about how you've created your data ecosystem.
Yeah, so we do. So we don't use DealCloud as a pipeline tool. We use it as a investor management platform, right? So everything around the life cycle of an investor, from pre-investment through the investment in any one of our funds or vehicles, and then obviously tracking returns and exits on those either on those funds, and hopefully the repeating of investors in the next fund. We're also looking at DealCloud around, and this is where we're starting to use some of the tools in the data cortex to help with pre-fundraising and looking at other possible products that investor may have an investment in that we don't have today. So one of the things about the history of the firm is that we've been much like a jellyfish. We morph between regions, we morph between products, whilst the firm stays core to the sectors it's always invested in for the last 30 years. And we've definitely seen variances in regional, and we've had other funds and other practices that have come out during that time. So for us, we were using a previous CRM tool, multiple clicks required. And I think that's one of the things that we tried to solve is the accessibility of data to the user by not having to click through 7 or 8 different links, right? It's all available to them in one single dashboard. And so for us, we've also taken the approach of what is our gold source of data. So when it comes to an investor's commitment amount, that's tracked in our fund accounting platform, and we've built an integration with DealCloud so that all of the information regarding the investor's investments flow from that gold source rather than from somebody else within the team trying to edit that data themselves.
Yeah, I like that. That's more of the kind of 360-degree view that I mentioned earlier. And for the end user, they're in one platform. They're not having to go in and out of different disparate systems. So that's really interesting.
Right.
So what we've just heard is the idea of enriching proprietary data with third-party data. There are many third-party data providers to choose from in building your ecosystem, especially in the capital markets. This graphic shows some of the integrations DealCloud facilitates with their clients today, whether through our Data Cortex platform, which Paul mentioned, or even through custom integrations. Isaiah, you talked about a phased approach. Where did you start, and how are you determining when the organization is ready to bring in additional third-party data?
Yeah, so I consider the use of a CRM to a certain extent a behavioral change. And in order to implement that behavioral change, you need to have a phased approach, right? If it's too much to learn in a short period of time, your adoption rate is going to decrease. So what we started with is getting a universal CRM up and running that is user-friendly and train people accordingly. And then we have moved to kind of a phase 2, if you will, or somewhat of a phase 1A, where we have Zoom info. So a third-party add-in to add in some of the missing information that we haven't collected. Websites, for example, which feeds into a news feed, which can be pretty helpful in some of the conversations that we have with financial sponsors, for example. The phase 2 would be potentially getting into Data Cortex to even put more third-party information in there, and again, just streamline the overall process. And then the third phase eventually would be to tie into our data warehouse, for example, to really make it a 360 kind of view.
Excellent. And Paul, seems like you might be a little bit further along in layering in this third-party data with some of the integrations that you currently have. What was your decision process? Which providers do you rely on the most? How did you decide which ones to start with?
So really, it came back to a philosophical view of how we want to deliver data to the business and how can we simplify the process for each individual business group, right? And so whereas before we had 4 or 5 different CRMs and one main CRM, which was used for our fundraising platform, but wasn't used for anything else, we took the approach here that we kind of stripped it back to bare bones and said, who do we want to own the various data sets? And then it's like, okay, who actually needs access to that data, right? So somebody within your fund accountant team may not need access to your DealCloud data, but an MD who's going on the road to meet with an investor, obviously in a pre-COVID world, he wants to see that information readily and available and across multiple devices. So that was really how we started to break down how we want to look at that data. And then in terms of what we wanted to integrate with, obviously our fund accounting platform was a huge one for us because that really does start to deliver significant data process. We've looked at Preqin, right? And so we have a Preqin integration because again, when you're bringing in third-party data, you have to be slightly skeptical about the value of it and also the accuracy of it. But we have sort of checks in place to sort of reassure ourselves as we go through that process. I think if we were to look at deal pipeline and look at that part of the business, then obviously things like FactSet or pitch books become more into the equation for us. We do have our event management system also integrating into the platform. And so that's actually allowed us to improve that process and get some of the reporting tools out of DealCloud that we wanted to, and really start to think about what data do we have around an investor and what that source is, and then let's bring that in together. And that's what we've done so far with DealCloud. We're constantly evaluating other sources, but for now, I think our phase 2 is more around looking at what else we could possibly deliver in terms of the reporting functionality and integrations with products such as Slack, which we're now using as a way of disseminating information from DealCloud rather than what other sources can we bring into. It's how do we get that information out?
Thank you. And Virginia, what's kind of your perspective or your view as you're evaluating and thinking about bringing in this third-party data?
Right. As I said, we've yet to fully integrate. We do have PitchBook partially linking where we can see the iframe, or at least users who
Oh,
have.
right.
However, we haven't fully integrated all of the data fields. It's our understanding that they're not, every piece of data coming from PitchBook isn't fully available to be pushed into DealCloud. So a big consideration for us is the cost benefit analysis of, there's an extra annual charge to have that data pushed into DealCloud. And as Isaiah had mentioned before, it really is about human behavior. I need to get a better pulse from our employees as to whether they're actually going to use the data from PitchBook as an example with the DC interface, or if they're going to continue with some of their, ongoing habits of just using the third-party provider software directly.
Yeah, it brings up a really interesting point of evaluating the data in the third-party platform, how it's used, and what are some of the reporting that's currently being pulled from those systems. You're exactly right. We don't bring in everything, nor would you want to bring in every field that you have access to in some of these third-party providers, but being selective and understanding how your user base is actually utilizing that data and analyzing that data, et cetera, is a real important first step. In this graphic from McKinsey, this is a detail of the value of data analytics across the value chain. Can any of you share with our audience just how you see data supporting outcomes like de-biased investment decisions, process automation, improved organizational effectiveness or efficiencies?
I'll start off here.
Perfect.
And again, I think this ties into the behavioral concept that we're talking about as well, and capturing that proprietary information. Increasing adoption, in my view, is one of the ways to do that is by showing the benefits associated with it. So efficiencies is one example. We recently got out of a pitch, sponsor, portfolio company of theirs. They asked for information on our last 10 transactions in terms of where our pitch range was and where the transaction ended up, how long it took to consummate that transaction. Historically, we would have had to reach out to a whole bunch of different people and collect that information, which takes time, right? And then understand the information. If we're capturing that information within a universal platform, i.e. DealCloud, that's going to save us significant hours in terms of preparation for that particular pitch and increase our probability at the end of the day of winning that pitch.
Thank you. Virginia or Paul, do you have experience to share here?
I'm happy to jump in. During our integration, our focus was on organizational efficiencies and process automation. So we were an organization that relied heavily on email communication to get us through key process steps and to provide updates to interested parties on how deal information was changing along the way. So during our integration, we made it very kind of a big push to get, ongoing, like just a typical process of an originator needs to request a deal team for staffing. We previously relied on an email communication to, come in through to our staffer. The staffer would then have to review an Excel file that he was looking at to see who was assigned to what deal. That's all done in the system via request form. He's then able to look at a centralized dashboard that shows him across the whole credit team who's assigned to what deal and where they are in the process, who may have capacity on a go-forward basis to get an assignment. So instead of having, important pieces of deal information sitting in email chains that never get recorded anywhere, we were able to use the DealCloud database to capture that information and then go, on a look back basis, able to look at information as to, who's been assigned to what deal at what point in time and how long it takes us to get through even each stage of our process to help us understand where our inefficiencies are in our investment process and try to improve upon those.
Thank you. Paul, anything to add here?
I think you can effectively replicate what Virginia's done with her deal pipeline and her credit team, effectively with our fundraising team. So one of the things that I've been tasked with over the last 5 to 6 years is really looking at how we automate most of our process and create efficiencies amongst the group. And so DealCloud is just one of those many tools. And in fact, I have a saying that I'm trying to rid the firm of Excel. It will never actually happen, but the less we can keep in Excel spreadsheets and email, the better. So one of the benefits of most of the platforms we've integrated recently, and significantly with DealCloud, is that we have automated that process. So no longer are you waiting for an email on a Friday, which somebody has to take the data from the previous CRM, put it into an Excel model, adapt it, modify it, run a macro against it to then get a report that they email. Now everything is, we send our reports out on a Monday morning, on a Sunday night, or early Monday morning. They all originate from DealCloud. The whole process is automated based on the data that's in that platform. And then rather than an email, we're sending it to a Slack channel. So you can subscribe to the channel, you can get the data feed, it's there real time. Much more effective process than before. So it's just one of the many ways that we're looking to, increase that automation and most importantly, efficiency.
Thank you. I really can relate to this idea of getting rid of Excel. What I didn't share in my opening comments was that prior to joining DealCloud, I was a client of DealCloud's. And that was our issue, is that everyone had a different version of an Excel spreadsheet. We were always chasing down emails, et cetera. And so my approach was as well to try to drive some efficiencies to show the users that their day, they don't have to work any harder, they can just work smarter. And so I can really, I've experienced the pain firsthand. So I understand where you're coming from.
Yeah, it's unlikely to happen, but all you can do is, you have a mission and you try and achieve it, right? And I'll never probably rid of us of Excel, but anything that we can do to sort of reduce the number of Excel documents by X is definitely an improvement from where we were.
Yeah,
well,
just like
for that information to be lost, right?
Right.
Particularly in this environment, in a COVID world, where we don't have to VPN into the network, or everyone's working from home, having something that is in the cloud is pretty instrumental in this environment. Just reinforces that.
Oh, absolutely. And I tell you, I had this big goal of I wanted to get rid of all the Excel spreadsheets that we had as well. And that's not something that happens overnight. I was able to get our firm to the point where we ran our Monday meetings from DealCloud. And so any of the data that we were showing or sharing and the supporting information on our deals, we kind of had this mentality, if it wasn't in DealCloud, it didn't exist. And so that helped us reduce the number of Excel spreadsheets, but it's not something that happens overnight.
But I think there's a critical point in there. You need that executive sponsorship, right? So whenever you decide to automate, whatever platform you decide to deploy across whatever sector it is, if you don't have something that's simple and easy to use, and we talk a lot about the simplification of IT within our group. Like right. I always take the process. Somebody comes to me and says, "Hey, why can't I do a video call on my iPhone, but I can't do it on my corporate device?" Right? Which used to be the request 3 years ago. So as we see that simplification of IT, we've always said, okay, that big approach now is simplification. So I think that also helps with the automation, is that you then give people, like, people can't read an Excel file on their iPhone, but you can read a mobile client that's delivering a dashboard. Or delivering some key information via an alert. And I think that's another big part of this automation and process and efficiency is, yes, you recognize that it's the more junior assistants you might be working with some of the data, but actually look at who's going to view that data and what's the platform that they're going to leverage that. And that's then how you can sort of get that adoption so you can change your processes.
Excellent. So we're going to transition into this embracing this embracement by our end users. We've heard the value of the data and the analytics, but adoption of the uses of the data to drive business outcomes is another thing which we've all acknowledged. As this last graphic from McKinsey suggests, data analytics are most helpful when broadly adopted. As I mentioned, in the firm prior to joining DealCloud, we did try to strive for that. If it's not in DealCloud, it doesn't exist. However, I broke out of the gate with great enthusiasm, big goals, but probably didn't put as much attention on the culture and behavioral change component of this. So I'm interested, as I'm sure our audience is, to hear how your firm's practices have been adopted so far. And Isaiah, you even mentioned in your opening comments or on the first couple of slides, this idea of behavioral change. Tell us more about that and how you managed that change.
Our bankers have used, Microsoft Excel, for example, for 20 some odd years. It's going to take a while to change that behavior. And one of the ways that you change that, in my view, is you show the benefits of a different system. And that is by collecting, in my view, proprietary information, for example, and showing them how it can be impactful and beneficial on an upcoming pitch, a sell-side mandate that you have, how it drives efficiencies. It's not something that happens overnight. And again, if you make that change too quickly, if you will, or make it where there's too much for you to have to learn, your adoption rate is going to decrease. I compare it a little bit like learning Excel shortcut keys. That takes a long time to learn Excel shortcut keys, right? So if you're building a financial model and you've got an analyst coming in and they're using a mouse, and that's one of the things that you tell them is do not use your mouse because it's going to take you forever. It's a similar concept. It's a steep learning curve, but you try to lessen that learning curve as much as possible by just making it easy as possible to use.
Thank you. Now, Virginia, y'all been on DealCloud, I think, for about a year and a half, maybe. How did you involve your people and manage this adoption piece?
Yeah, so Kathy, thank you. As I mentioned, we really focused on the front end of the process where we had a lot of inefficiencies, where we had data in disparate places. We all wanted to try to get it in one place. As you mentioned, the Monday morning meetings, we used to have those in Excel files that I would PDF out on Sunday night. And then of course, come Monday morning, something had changed with the deal and it was no longer on the pipeline, wasn't reflected in my PDF file. So I think the team has become very appreciative of the kind of real-time information that is delivered in our CRM. We have also set up the CRM to capture deal data the way that it needs to be captured. We previously didn't have a way for kind of showing an auction situation around a deal, and there were multiple sponsors involved, and we were, kind of competing in that process alongside them. So being able to structure data correctly and reflect it live in a system has been really helped with our adoption. And so with that said, I've had, people on the team come up and say, hey, what else can we do from a efficiency standpoint to get more information in the system? So we recently implemented a investment committee voting record. And so there's a central dashboard. So if someone in compliance wants to take a look at, has this investment committee approved this deal and who on the committee has approved it and who is still an outstanding vote, that's all in a central dashboard that they can look at rather than having to email the deal team and see kind of where it is in the process. We're looking at other kind of ways that we can use the system. So we don't use it from an investor perspective yet, as Paul does, but we are looking at tracking our leverage financing facilities in it. And so we would, for the CLOs and the investor base in those CLOs, like who's holding what tranche. So it's another kind of idea that we've looked at and are hoping to go live with soon.
Excellent. And Paul, from your perspective, you've not been on DealCloud as long, and you're running a little bit of a different process. But what can you tell us about how you approach the adoption? Even outside of just providing the most important data first, what else did you find you had to do to get people engaged?
So I think the big part of this for us was our research. So we probably spent about 18 months looking at a whole series of CRM platforms.
Wow.
And then spent my team probably spent a couple of months just interviewing and getting feedback from everybody involved in our investor management process to say, okay, what do you need? How do you work? And how would you like to work? Don't tell me what the other systems don't do. Tell me what you want this one to do. And so that crossed a wide series of requests, right? From I want an iOS client I can actually use. One of the pieces of feedbacks I got was, hey, I know how to use the current system because I have access to one report and that's all I need. To, hey, I want to be able to use, email mass emailing tools. So that was really a big part of what we did. I think that in terms of driving adoption, so like with every project you go into, there's you have a wish list, right? You have the 8 you really want, the 2 that would be nice. And we structured our training around that user's wish list. And the benefit for us was actually we were able to achieve almost everything that we wanted going out the gate with DealCloud. So when you have a product that you can tie into your process, and it also gave us a chance to review some of our processes and recognize they were not efficient. I think that's why we've been off to such a successful start with the platform. We'll see where it goes, but adoption rate today is high. And I think what's pleasing for us is as we keep enabling new pieces of functionality and we carry on, we provide sort of training help sheets and Slack notes every sort of month to say, hey, did you know you can do this? Only the other day I was on a call with somebody and they're like, hey, it'd be really good if it did this. And I'm like, it does. Like, yes. Oh, that's life-changing. That just saved me an hour. I'm like, okay. So anyway, we have a few angels, as we call them, who are starting to educate the business. So I think that we're off to a good start. We'll see what everybody thinks in 2 or 3 years' time. But if you can kickstart the project with a really good initiative like that, a really good starting point, it actually helps, to Virginia's point earlier, it helps drive adoption. And once people are in the platform, they start to ask questions, can it do this or could you do this? And so when we meet internally as a team on a monthly basis to review where we are, the product that we do all of our products, we carve out 15 minutes for the wish list. Like, hey, if it doesn't do this today, what could it do this, right? And that's some of the strongest points that we have as a team. It's like, that's some of the best feedback we get. It's like, okay. And then we reach when we're working with the DealCloud team and say, hey, we're thinking about using it in this way. And head of products like, oh, that's the first time we've heard that. Okay, we'll think about that. And we've got 1 or 2 things I think that are in the product roadmap that they're fulfilling some of our wish lists. So I think that you have to get your users empowered in any system. You can't just be technology sat in an ivory tower saying, this is how you're going to work. It's going to be, okay, let us understand how you work and then let us work with you to bring our skill set from technology side to hopefully mirror the two and allow you to, become more efficient and more effective.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I know that it's real important from the DealCloud side that we really design and configure according to the different personas in an organization. You've got to really understand your user base and how they're going to be using the tool, how they're going to be consuming the data, et cetera. So very good discussion and very helpful and appreciate the comments. So again, I'd like to thank Virginia, Isaiah, and Paul for sharing with us today. In our remaining time, I'd like to review a few questions that have come in. I'm just going to go through them in the order that they've been posted. Unless there's a specific panelist addressed, I'll just ask that you all jump in and provide your perspective. So the first question I have is, when looking at multiple data sources, how does your firm evaluate which data is the most accurate or reliable?
So let me start this one. So I'll use how we track our investor commitments. So prior to DealCloud, we were tracking obviously in the books and records, which is our fund accounting, because we get the notification from the attorneys that, hey, this investor has committed X amount to this fund. But because we wanted to track that in a previous CRM, there was multiple duplicates of that email going around, and somebody on the investor relations team would be entering the data and said, hey, investor A just gave us X amount of money. Well, it's X, but actually it's X broken down through these different vehicles. And so when we had either an investor relationship manager or an MD or even the CEO of the firm going to meet an investor, he had an approximation potentially of what that investor had committed to either the current fund, the previous or the prior funds, or different initiatives across the firm. So we said, okay, look, hang on, where is the true source? The true source is actually in our fund accounting platform. Okay, we need that data to go into DealCloud. And so we built that pipeline. So we had the incorrect data in there, not through anybody's lack of performance, but everybody enters data in a different way, and we're trying to eliminate that. So I think that's probably the clearest example I can give you.
Thank you. Very good. Anyone else have a response or point they'd like to make?
Kathy, I mean, one of the things that we use with Zoom Info is we have the ability to either use our proprietary information, if you will, that we've captured, or revert to the third-party data. So in some instances,
right.
it's a check, if you will, in one way or the other, to keep our information as clean as possible.
Yeah, really good point. And I think that's the case with most of our integrations that we have through our data cortex, is that you can select either the proprietary to win, that data to win, or the third-party data to win. So great point. Thanks for sharing. Next question here. What kinds of data integrations come out of the box with DealCloud? Oh, great. This sounds like this one's for me. So I'll take this one. We offer several options through our Data Cortex product. This is our integrated data solution that allows you to bring in this third-party data from multiple data providers. Today, we have the capability of this type of integration with, let me see if I can get them all, FactSet, PitchBook, Preqin, S&P Capital IQ, Privco, SourceScrub, Sutton Place Strategies. And so that's all available through our data cortex. However, as you heard Paul mention earlier, we do have the ability to build custom integrations with your data warehouse or other data providers. It just takes a conversation between all the parties, and like Virginia noted, we just need to make sure that DealCloud is aligned with your third-party provider, and that we're both aligned with what your goals are in bringing in that data. So thanks for asking. Let's see, I think we have time for one more. A little bit off topic, but the question here is, during these unique times and so many people working remote, how has your technology or the use of a CRM helped you during this difficult time? Isaiah, you actually mentioned this, not having to VPN, so you talked about this a little bit. Virginia or Paul, would you have anything to add?
I don't know that it has changed anything. If anything, we've got less of our, fewer members of our team on the road, traveling, meeting clients. So really what we're trying to be more focused on is, how do we get ourselves ready for when that travel picks back up? How do we make sure that people are okay with the dashboards that are showing up in the mobile app, because the mobile app was just upgraded? Is the mobile app working appropriately? Are notifications going out appropriately? All that is really important, because as I mentioned, we use the system now, for key workflows and functions. So we'll be looking to make sure that we're ready for when people are ready to get back on the road.
I don't think for us it's made us a significant change, really. I think the big thing for us is because everything is already in, made the investment in DealCloud a year ago. It kind of allowed us to continue to work effectively. So you didn't have to go into disparate systems and now get that data. It's still in one platform for you. I think, like Virginia, the Outlook app is the iOS app is certainly something that we're looking to leverage more. We were looking to leverage that more anyway as we were sort of going into this process. So outside of that, I think having that one single pane of glass, that dashboard you can get to, is great. So therefore, it's easy for the user to get to the data, but I think that's a benefit almost with or without COVID.
Really good points. We do find that a lot of our clients right now are taking this time to, refresh their data, clean up their data. They're, like Virginia mentioned, they're preparing for when things really take off again. And that's how they're really leveraging the platform to get ready for this kind of next phase. So I think I have time for one more question, if we can be brief. So again, y'all, you must have all provided really good insight on the topic of data, but here's a question that's around the transparency to the data. How have you managed opening up visibility to different teams in the organization?
Yeah, I'll kick it off here. So we're a global investment bank. Each geography has different rules and regulations, right? So we are potentially looking at expanding our CRM into Canada. And that's one of the things that we're going through right now, is just figuring out, are we able to do so? Are there any regulations that we have to be aware of that we would have to apply to our CRM? But the overall goal there is to increase transparency, if you will, from a global perspective, given we do a fair amount of cross-border M&A.
Interesting. Well, again, I'd like to thank you for joining us, and we hope that next year we'll be able to be all together face to face and have the opportunity to further expand our network. You will all be sent a link so that you can review all of the recordings from Connect. If you have any questions for DealCloud, please reach out to your account manager or sales representative that's been in touch with you. If you'd like to reach out to any of the speakers, they're all on LinkedIn. I encourage y'all to continue to build this network, engage with the speakers. And again, I just appreciate everyone's time. Special thanks to Virginia, Isaiah, and Paul for being with us today. Have a great day.